Would you like to learn how to make some delicious Guyanese cook-up rice? Just like this? Well, in this episode of the Lisa D's Delight Show, I'm going to show you how to make the most delicious Guyanese cook-up rice. We're going to use some black-eyed peas, some fresh garlic and herbs. You make your Guyanese cook-up rice like this. Your New Year's dinner is about to be really, really bussin'.
Lisa D Delight. Got noises in my stomach, so I guess I'm feeling hungry. I click that YouTube Lisa D so I can kill this rumbling. But when I'm in the kitchen, don't know what I'm doing, stumbling. It's time I try to cook.
As usual, the ingredients and measurements and such will be in the description box below. So yes, we do Southern cuisine with a healthy flair over here. I'm still working on the healthy flair part. Don't judge me, you don't know my life. But I also enjoy making foods from all over the world. It's just fun to me. So Guyanese cook-up rice is a recipe that I saw my YouTube sis make. Candy the Glam Cook. She does a lot of Guyanese recipes because she's from Guyana. But please go check out her channel. All her dishes are thebomb.com. And if you like what you see at her house, please subscribe. Her link will be in my description box and pinned in my comments. So when I first made Candy's recipe, it came out super yummy. So I said I have to do a video on this. And of course, you know me, I had to put my little Lisa D spin on it. But pretty much it's very similar to Candy's recipe. I especially love making Caribbean dishes because my family is from Barbados. And in Barbados, we make something similar. It's called palau rice. So this reminds me of that. So come on, let's cook. Wait, no man. What y'all do? We must prep first.
Lisa D Delight.
It's best to soak your beans overnight. That way, it'll reduce your cooking time. You just put them in some water and let them soak overnight. And that way they soften up. And then, you know, you have to cook them for less time. This recipe is really very versatile. You can pretty much use any kind of meat that you would like or any kind of beans. But I found that when I first tried it and I used kidney beans, red kidney beans, and black-eyed peas, it just came out super yummy. So those are the kind of beans that I like to use. But as I said, we're going to soak our beans overnight. So you want to fill up a bowl to cover the beans and cover the black-eyed peas. Cover them with hot water and then also place a cover on top of the bowl and set it aside on your kitchen counter till the next morning. But if your life is set up the way mine is sometimes and you just don't have that type of time, child, to be soaking no beans, then just go ahead and cook it right away. It'll still be good. It'll just take you a little bit longer to cook your beans. But I did soak my beans overnight. Another good reason for soaking your beans is that soaking them allows the beans to release some indigestible sugars. And those bean sugars is what can make you gassy. So soak your beans so you won't have to social distance after you eat this dish. Your family will thank me. You're welcome. Just be sure to discard the bean water after you soak the beans. I used to actually save that water and cook with it and use it as a little thickening agent until I learned this little fact. I love Better Than Bouillon beef base. It just elevates the flavor of beef so nicely. It's like a flavor enhancer, and any kind of beef that you add this to is gonna take your dish to new yummy levels. So here I have some beef chunks and also some skinless, boneless chicken thighs. So you want to go ahead and add a little bit of the Better Than Bouillon beef base to the beef chunks. And we're going to add some Better Than Bouillon chicken base to the chicken thighs. And this is just going to elevate the flavor profile of this dish so nicely. Oh, and this is my super cool measurement spoon thingy. I love it because it's adjustable and you can just slide it up and down and it'll give you a teaspoon, half a teaspoon, quarter teaspoon, whatever you need, or a tablespoon. I get it from Pampered Chef. It's really cool. I'll put the link for it in the description below. But yeah, Better Than Bouillon products are really flavorful, but they're also salty. So I use that instead in place of salt. So if I use their products, I really don't use any salt. But saying all that to say, When you make this dish, you want to taste as you go so that you can adjust your seasonings accordingly. So then go in with some complete seasoning. Also go in with some garlic powder, onion powder, and fresh cracked black pepper. Oh, I just remembered something that I told you about that bean water when I said to discard it. If you happen to have plants, they say that the plants love that water, so you can feed it to your green friends. You know what? I think that this Guyanese cook-up rice would go so nicely with this roasted spatchcock delicious chicken that I made. I made a video about it. Like to see it? Here it goes. It was so good. Candy says that this dish is a tradition for them back in Guyana. Every New Year's, Guyanese cook-up rice or cook-up rice is a must-have for them. I guess similar to how African Americans have to have their black eyed peas on New Year's for good luck. I guess it's something like that. I don't know if they consider it to be good luck or not. Guyana is one place where I would love to visit. I've traveled and visited so many different Caribbean tropical islands before, and Guyana is one that I have not experienced yet, so I would love to go there. Tell me in the comments, have you been to Guyana before? So after you've massaged your meat really, really good, what? It's your meat, you can play with it. Girl, YouTube about to strike you for being too dang fresh on a cooking channel. Okay. After you have well incorporated all the seasonings into your poultry and your beef, then you want to put it in the fridge and let it marinate overnight. You happy now? Now let's chop up some onions, garlic, tarragon, scallions, ginger, multicolored bell peppers, fresh basil, cilantro, and thyme. Don't hate, boo-boo, because you can't chop fast like me. I'm a professional.
Lisa D delights.
Now let's boil our black-eyed peas and our red kidney beans in 2 separate pots on medium-high heat. Be sure to use 2 separate pots for the beans because they are different sizes and different textures, and you don't want one to be fully cooked and the other not. Just fully cover your beans with water, or you could use chicken broth if you wanted a little added extra flavor. And let the beans boil for about 45 minutes. If they're pre-soaked, 45 minutes to an hour. And if you haven't pre-soaked them, then it might take like an hour to an hour and a half to get the beans done. Before boiling, add 1 bay leaf to each pot for some additional flavor. Next, we're going to get ready to pressure cook our meats. And instead of using water to cook them, I like to use beef broth. And like I said, the better than bouillon is so flavorful that I make my own beef broth with beef better than bouillon. What you do is take 3 cups of very hot water and add 3 teaspoons of better than bouillon beef base to it and stir it up. But if you don't have the better than bouillon, you can just use regular beef bouillon cubes, or you can use the beef broth from the box, or you can just use plain water. I was just trying to help your palate. We're making 3 cups of beef broth because we're going to use 1 cup of the broth to put in the Instant Pot to pressure our meats, and then the other 2 cups we're going to use to cook our rice. So the black Vanna White over here wants you guys to know that she does not have an Instant Pot, but her pressure cooker is actually a Mueller brand, and she loves it. Miss Vanna also would like you to know that if you do not own a pressure cooker, she would strongly advise that you get one. It is good for tenderizing tougher cuts of meat, cheaper, tougher cuts of meat, and it also cooks meat in half the time. Please pray for Vanna to get some sense. So first we're going to use the saute mode on the pressure cooker to brown our beef, and we're going to do the beef first because the beef takes longer to cook than the chicken. So go in with a little bit of coconut oil. You can use any oil, but I like the flavor of the coconut oil in this dish. And if you don't own an Instapot, you can definitely cook your beef and your chicken on the stovetop. It'll just take you longer. So we're going to saute the beef chunks for about 3 minutes. And then we're going to add some cassoulet to it. Cassoulet is like a browning, but it's a little more flavorful, and it's traditional to use Cazareep in this Guyanese cook-up rice. I got it from Amazon, but if you can't find it, you can just use browning. Personally, I love for all my meats to have a deep, rich color to it, so that's what Cazareep does. It gives it that beautiful color. So let that saute for like another minute or so, and then go in with about 1 cup of beef broth and cook the beef chunks for 20 minutes on high pressure and do a 10-minute natural release. But first, add in 2 bay leaves. Once the beef has cooked for 20 minutes and a 10-minute natural release, we're going to go ahead and add our chicken to the same pot, and we're going to pressure cook our chicken on high for 8 minutes and do a 5-minute natural release. But before we cook the chicken, we have to add a little bit more Cazareep, because if it ain't brown, it ain't going down. Okay! So I made a boo-boo when making this recipe. Hey, professionals make mistakes too. Don't judge me, judge your mammy. I'm just kidding. I was supposed to add my green seasoning to the meat in the beginning before I marinated it overnight. I can't be pretty talented in the kitchen and remember everything. Jeez, y'all be wanting too much. So I added it when I remembered while the chicken was cooking. But ultimately, you want to add green seasoning while you're seasoning your meat in the beginning before you marinate your meat. And what green seasoning is, it's a blend of garlic, onions, bell peppers, and some other herbs. It's not mandatory for this recipe, but it does add superior additional flavor. The recipe video for my green seasoning will be linked above, depending on when you're seeing this. So this is how the beef and the chicken will look once it's all cooked. And now we're ready to have a party in our pot. On medium heat, add some coconut oil to your pot, and then go in with some onions, some fresh ginger, and some multicolored bell peppers. And also add some scallions and some tarragon. Yes, sir. Stir what your mama gave ya. And then add in some fresh basil, as well as some fresh garlic. We add the garlic last because garlic has a tendency to burn. Let the veggies saute for about 3 minutes. Next, we're going to add in our red kidney beans, as well as our black eyed peas, along with all the bay leaves that we cook with the beans and the ones that we cook with the meat. Oh, drain your beans before adding them to the pot, but keep the broth that the beans were boiled in. We're going to use that later. Give that a good mix and then add in the meat. And mix, mix, mix some more. Now let's get ready to add our rice. This is my favorite rice to use. I never really get people that say they have a hard time cooking rice, because pretty much, even if you don't use this, any rice that you use, just follow the package directions and it pretty much is fail proof. I'm confused. But anyway, this is my favorite rice because when you do use this, you don't have to worry about the clumpiness and the stickiness of the rice. Just be sure to rinse this off before you cook it, and use Uncle Ben's because it's parboiled and you don't have to worry about that clumpiness and that stickiness. And pretty much with any kind of rice, you just use 1 cup rice to 2 cups water and you Gucci. But if you do have a problem making rice, try Uncle Ben's and see if it doesn't turn out better for you. These people really need to cut me a check because I ain't even getting paid for none of this. And you would think somebody give me a coupon, a discount, a Happy Meal or something. So after you rinse your rice, go ahead and add it to the party pot. Stir that a little, and then we're going to go ahead and add in our seasonings. The first seasoning I'm using is my own seasoning called the Sil. It's actually my baby, my masterpiece, and it happens to be a yummy blend of salt, pepper, onion, garlic powder, and other spices. It'll be coming your way soon, but until then, you're just going to have to settle for using something whack like Lawry seasoned salt, just kidding, a little onion powder, garlic powder, and fresh cracked black pepper. Also add in some complete seasoning and 1 packet of Sazon. Sazon makes everything, almost everything, taste amazing. And add in some smoked paprika, as well as some allspice, pimento seeds. Allspice gives it that earthy, aromatic flavor in the background. Also add in some fresh cracked black pepper. Now we're going to let the rice fry for about 7 minutes until the rice is slightly opaque in color but not brown. Then after all of our dry ingredients had a chance to get nice and well acquainted, then we're going to go ahead and add in our liquids. When making this recipe, it's best to use fresh coconut milk, like from juicing real coconuts. However, darling, my 64 coconut trees that I have on my millions and millions of acres of land back here, they did not produce any coconuts this year. So unfortunately, I had to resort to canned coconut milk. Don't judge me. You can do the same. It'll still be good. So now let's add the coconut milk to the party. And like my sis Candy says, she doesn't like to use the likes of average water to her Guyanese cook-up rice. She likes to go further for that flavor, baby. And I agree. So we're going to use the liquid that we caught when we cooked our meats, in addition to the liquid that we caught when we cooked our beans, because all of that has flavor and nutrients up in it. But the key here is to not add too much liquid at once. You want to add liquid as you go along. So initially cover the rice with about 1 inch of liquid above the rice, and then as it cooks, if you see that you need more liquid, the rice isn't done yet, it's still too firm, you can add a little bit more liquid as you go along, but do not add too much liquid at once, because then you'll end up with a soggy rice. So I used the broth that I caught from the meat and added that to the rice, but the broth that I made with the Better Than bouillon really didn't need that because the meat already produced enough broth. But it just depends on how much rice you're cooking, how much meat you have. You have to just taste your rice and see if it's done yet and if you need to add additional broth or not. And then add in some fresh thyme, as well as some however you pronounce it, child peppers. I don't like heat, but if you do, you can bust the peppers. But for me, I just add it for flavor, and I'm careful not to bust it. Push it down so that it can cook and marry. And then add a little bit of brown sugar. No, it will not be sweet. Shut your face. It just balances out all the flavors nicely. Stir that really well, and then add a little bit more casarip for some added flavor and color. Stir, stir, stir. Then allow it to come to a boil, and once it begins to boil, reduce the heat to low and cover the pot and allow it to simmer for about 20 minutes. And then check it and stir it because you don't want it to stick. Check the doneness and check to see if you need to add any more liquid, and taste it to see if you need to add any additional seasonings. And then once the rice is completely cooked, you can go ahead and add in your okra. Okra doesn't take long to cook at all. It just has to be steamed. So add it to the pot, push it down into the rice, and recover the pot and allow the okra to steam for about 5 minutes. And then our Guyanese cook-up rice will be done, and the only thing left to do is to add some scallions and some fresh cilantro and mix well for the one time, and then it should look like this. My God, forever, she did that. Shout out to my girl Candy for this yummy recipe. It was really so delicious. You guys have got to try it. And thank you to my Lord and Savior for always blessing me and the LDD family. Father God, we love you, praise you, adore you, and appreciate you for every single thing. This is definitely my new favorite rice dish. You want a bite? Of course you do. Here you go. You're welcome. Shoot, I want another bite. There's the fork drop. That's how you know it's good. Always remember, when you cook from your heart with love, you can't go wrong. Have a blessed, delicious, and delightful day. Bye.
These peas, you got recipes, and you make the food so good. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you make the food so good. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you make the food so good. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you make the food so good. Make sure you like and subscribe.